Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Friday live stream. So we've got a special guest today, Peyton from Atrium Lab. Peyton, Big Pey, thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for having me on, Rob. It's always a pleasure. I enjoy watching your streams, and it's an exciting day to be on. I think that I just saw there's a 90% chance of them to, lower the rates next month. So everybody's excited right now. It's a good time for a stream.
Exactly. Isn't it amazing the sentiment, how fast it shifts? It's like, we're going to go to a bear market. This is suck. We're going to be 90% down. And then all of a sudden today, we're back.
Yeah, I know. I think ADA this morning was like 82 cents. I do a normal, product call, and I look back, oh, it's 90 cents, just like that. Nice green candle.
Yeah, exactly. So we're gonna touch on a lot of things. We have to talk about Jerome Powell, which everybody is talking about. We're gonna go over this quickly about what it is. I'd like to talk about Atrium, which is your platform. I'd also like to go over this midnight airdrop and the problems people are having and some of the roadblocks to get over. And then, of course, we'll talk about Powell, what's going on. But first of all, if you're not following Big Pey, I put a couple of links into the description. You can check him out over on his YouTube channel. You can do what I do, which is follow on YouTube, but also on X. And then, of course, his platform, Atrium. There'll be links in the description for all of those. But let's get into what the heck happened today and why the market is doing so well. First of all, we can really go into detail about what Jerome Powell does and did and talked about, but I think everybody's got a limited, finite amount of time. So this is what I said. I just asked Grok, I said, give me a summary. So Jerome Powell's speech today signaled a potential shift toward monetary policy easing, hinting at a possible September rate cut due to rising employment risks and cooling inflation. Now, I remember that the CPI was going up. It always goes up. I shouldn't say it. CPI doesn't always go up, but there was a little bit of a uptick as far as CPI and core CPI, but it wasn't as bad as what they thought it was. It did go up, but there was, as far as the expectation, it was lower than expected, I think, on core, but on regular PPI, it did go up a little bit higher. But that wasn't the issue. The issue was PPI, or the Producer Price Index, which takes a look at the cost of goods and services paid for by the producer. And that was almost a full point. And that had gone up. And people are like, no big deal, because let's see what the job market is. Job markets came in, and it was fine. And then 3 or 4 days later, they revised them, and somehow we lost 250,000 jobs. And that's where we're at right now. So because of the market, the job market is cooling a little bit, and inflation isn't as bad, Jerome Powell's like, sure, let's raise some rates. And because of that, I think this is right. Let me refresh this. Oh, yeah. Because of that, the last, 24 hours are up 3.4. Bitcoin flirting with 117,000. Ethereum, the big winner today, 12% in 24 hours. XRP up 5.5%. But I want everybody to be aware of, this is great, but look at the 7-day and 30-day as a reminder. So if you're just sitting on the sidelines, sometimes that works out. But I got to tell you, unless you're throwing sand in the ocean, which we talked about a couple of days ago, it's kind of hard to make it. BNB is up across the board. Solana, 8%, but only 2.5% over 30 days. That's interesting. Doge, down 4.5% over 30, but 4.8 for a week. Tron, 16.3. And look at Cardano, up 12% for 30 days, 7.6. And Chainlink crushing it at 51% over 30 and 26. So before we move on, Pey, what do you think about this? Is this going to be sustainable, or do you think this is just a flash in the pan?
I think, I'm not really good with price predictions, but what I've noticed is that, in the last time that, Jerome needed to start raising rates, he kind of kept pushing it off for a while, over and over and over again. I think that that's happened again. I personally believe, without offering financial advice to anyone, that we're heading into kind of the later term of the market where things start to go crazy. Over the next 6 months, I think that we're going to see new Bitcoin all-time highs. I think that we're going to, see the same thing for ETH, and it's going to come quick. 30 to 60 days, it's going to be a flash. And, I think things are going to shoot up and then, crash just as they have before. But, that's my kind of, belief over the next 6 months as we're reaching kind of the latter end of the halvening cycle. And we're going to see kind of the crazy runs. But as always, be careful out there because not every coin's going to run.
Exactly. And there is a split between people who believe in the 4-year cycles and like, this is the same. And then other people say, this is not the same because this is way different. And we'll see who's actually right. But I had to tell you, just like what you say, Pey, not all these tokens, these coins are going to run because some of them are just worthless pieces of trash. And I think some of the ones that actually have utility, a good community, actually do something, a battle tested, those are the ones we should really be looking at. There's a reason why the top 20 that we took a look at, the ones that are going up just because based on utility. And I will say, people will say, and like we're talking about, funds rate. Well, this is not really. I just want to remind everybody, this is the federal funds target range and going all the way back from 2010 when we were there, we're essentially at zero after the Great Recession, 2007, 8, and 9. We are flat. And in 2013, the end of 2013, Bitcoin went from a couple dollars to $1,000. And then we were flat. And then we raised rates starting in 2016 and 2017. And we still hit all-time highs. We went from 1,000 to 20,000. And people say, well, we can't do that. We already did that. And then we actually went down. In 2021, we had flat rates because of this thing called coronavirus. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it. It was like a big thing back in the day. And then, of course, rates rose like crazy after 2022, and then they cut rates, and we're still going up. So people say it's the same kind of thing happening over and over again. So it doesn't really matter if the funds rates go up exponentially, like we've done before, or if they're flat, or they're raising, or they're cutting. I think Bitcoin and the crypto market is inevitable. So what are we going to see? Well, if we take a look at the CME group, let me refresh this, because this was at 72%, and now we're at 89.3%. So it's not just the crypto market sentiment that shifts like crazy. It's also the people going, you know what? I think that we're going to cut rates on the next meeting of the Fed Reserve on 17th of September. And about 90% or 10% are saying that's going to stay the same. Real quick, if you ever go to the CME group, there's this other little piece right here for target range. Click on the compare, because you can see just what people were thinking over time. And you can see like here on the 22nd of July, there was like a 40% chance almost of things staying the same. And then Jerome Powell came out, then other data comes in, and it goes back and forth. So if you think that, it's just that the crypto market, which is a little bit off, it's also the traditional market. They're just as flippant as us at times. And then, of course, if we take a look at poly market, Fed rate cut in 2025, we're back up to 93%. I'd rather put my money on this one. So, Pey, before we move on to the midnight airdrop, any other words of wisdom for the investors out there as we're going into this?
With the inflation of assets all around the world, I think your mantra around just, throwing sand in the ocean, is at least what I do. I think it's important to just slowly DCA over time into different markets and, ride out the waves. And the other thing too that I'll always say, especially as we head into maybe brighter times, is sell. I think that as things go up and, you start thinking you're a genius, you start thinking, you're this rich guy forever, take profits, in the same way that you DCA in slowly, DCA out as well, because I've noticed this kind of community mantra in crypto. If ADA goes to $4 or $5, you're one of the ADA boys and you don't want to sell it, or same thing with Bitcoin. And I think it's always good to, take profits on the way up and, on the way down as well.
It's a good point. And what I've always heard when I got in, and I think when you got in as well, the same thing, which was diamond hands, laser eyes, and never sell, bro. And then I was always kind of perplexed, of course, because Bitcoin is freedom. And I'm like, well, if you're still going to a 9-to-5 job that you absolutely hate, and you can't do the things that you want to do when you want to do it, and you have to answer to somebody, that's not really freedom. I would just kind of say that, but again, everybody's got their own goals. Some are doing this for their kids or grandkids. Some are doing this, to wait for 20 years, but it really just depends on what you want to do. But the thing that people want to do, apparently, is do an airdrop. and this is for midnight. Now, if you're not familiar with this, we talked about this the last time Pey was on. I think it was like 2.5 weeks ago or so.
Yeah.
And just so you know that it's not just Cardano holders. ADA holders get 50% of the supply, Bitcoin holders 20%, and then the other ones like Solana, XRP, BNB, AVAX, BAT, they get the other 20%. But there's been some problems somewhere along the lines of people actually getting the airdrop. First of all, Pey, how do they get this airdrop? Right, first of all, what is it? How do they get the airdrop? And what are the problems that people are having?
Sure. So, I'll first start it with, what is the Midnight blockchain? I've kind of been a, Cardano maxi in the way. Of course, I like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana and the latter, but I've mostly been in Cardano. But Midnight really is, opening my eyes. I think it, kind of is this idea of a new blockchain that's going to work really well in the direction that we're heading as an industry. Because what it offers is privacy. So when I go to swap, on an exchange, I don't want somebody to know what my position is.
Right.
If you look at, Ethereum, you see MEV attacks all the time. Large institutions, they don't want everybody to know what they're trading, their ins and outs. And, the reason it's different than Monero, which just recently kind of, maybe was centralized in a way with the 51% attack, is that you can actually offer disclosures on a DApp basis, right? So you have the privacy aspect, but you also have the ability to disclose to the jurisdiction that you're in. And this has been the issue with privacy in the past, is that, it's looked as a tool for money laundering or, for people doing bad things in the world. Whereas with Midnight, you actually can have that privacy with the ability to still disclose your transactions, to a government agency, right? So I think it's a really kind of good mix of, a private ledger that allows you to disclose to your jurisdiction so you're still complying with the law, but offers a whole new use case for dApp developers to offer private transactions. And what's happening now is instead of doing like a private sale or a big VC or an ICO like we've seen in the past, they're just airdropping all of the tokens to all of the big blockchains. And I think that this is kind of a shift. What is valuable right now in our industry is users ultimately, right? So instead of selling to them, they're just airdropping all of these tokens to, I think, 8 different blockchains at once. ADA holders get the majority of it. I think BTC second. And with that, there have been some problems because everyone stores their assets in different ways. Some people are using maybe an Exodus wallet or using Coinbase. And, ultimately, some of these assets aren't going to be eligible based on the wallet that you're using, based on the exchange that you're using. And, so some people have been having problems. On day one, there was an issue with Ledger where people that had a Ledger, they couldn't claim. That's now been fixed using the Lace wallet, which is nice. And Trezor, so Trezor didn't support message signing in the past, but they actually released an update as well, I think about a week and a half ago, that they are actively working, with, teams on Cardano to add the ability for Trezor to be able to claim the airdrop within the 60-day window. I've also heard of people having trouble with the Exodus wallet as well. I just saw a solution release that's a bit technical, right? So I can provide a link to that as well. I have it in the chat here.
Sure. And then on top of that, if you guys go to Pey's YouTube channel, all the videos that he's done on Midnight and the updates and the technical parts, that will also be there as well. Hey, Peyton, before we move on, talk to who is eligible for this. Is it just every single Bitcoin holder out there? Can they have wallets on exchanges? Do they have to have cold storage wallets, hot wallets? How does that work?
You're in a best position if your Bitcoin is, yours, right? If you don't have it on an exchange, if you have it on Coinbase, Robinhood, etc., it's most likely that they're not going to support it, right? So this is kind of a big win for people that, actually store their assets in the right way, in their own wallet. It's on the exchange to actually support it. Right. So you can reach out to the exchange and say, hey, can you guys support this? And maybe they will, maybe they won't. I know some exchanges are ultimately supporting it. But if you have your Bitcoin, in a hardware wallet or your ADA in a hardware wallet or even your Ethereum or Solana, you'll be able to claim it. Whereas exchanges are kind of a bit, wishy-washy. But as I said in our last video, just make sure you're, doing some due diligence here. The main website is midnight.td. scammers are always on the rise. They're always looking for a way to take your assets. And, you're connecting your wallet here, you're claiming something, so make sure you're using the actual website here, midnight.gd. If you own any of these assets, as I mentioned, in a hardware wallet or just in a paper wallet, you'll be able to claim this, with the different assets.
Yeah. And I think because of the fact that the scammers on the rise and the different issues with it, I have just kind of sat this one out myself. But that's actually good because all the midnight that was supposed to flow to me is going to flow to everybody who wants to connect. And that's the whole thing about this community. So if you want to be a part of that, that is the big thing. Links in the description, but there is some questions for Pey. Well,
I
first
see one here. Okay.
This is a good one. How much money is in that suitcase behind you?
$0 right now, but if you want to fill it up together, I'm happy to.
How about this one? I want to claim my airdrop through Yoroi, the Yoroi wallet, but is it okay to have to put my password in? I think, is this the spending password he's talking about? Hopefully not the whole
So
thing.
what's nice about Yoroi is they actually have a new button within Yoroi that looks like a little airdrop symbol. If you click that, you can do it directly in Yoroi without having to connect your wallet or go to another website. And it's actually the easiest way to claim the Midnight airdrop as of now, because it's directly in wallet. They build the transaction for you. And what you're doing is just signing a message saying, hey, I'm eligible, I want the airdrop. And you can do that without ever having to leave your wallet. But you do have to type in that password to sign the message.
Oh, there you go. And then, well, and this is kind of like some of my sentiment. Danny says, connecting my entire wallet seems BS crazy to me. So I will say, is there a way around this? Because the airdrop is connected to, is it connected to the wallet and how much you have? Could you, how about this? Let's say you have a cold storage device, TANGEM, right? Or Trezor. Could you just move all your crypto off because a snapshot was already taken and then connect and then have nothing in that cold storage device?
Yes, you can do exactly that. And what's actually happening here on the back end is you're just signing a message and saying, I'm eligible. And the reason you have to connect your wallet is because they've built a tool for you that just allows you to easily sign that message. But if you're, crypto savvy, what you can do is you can just create a new wallet, on a different hardware wallet or on the same hardware wallet, send your assets over there, and then connect an empty wallet to claim it, because that snapshot date was at a much earlier date. I want to say it was back in, June.
Oh yeah, a long time ago. You're right.
So yeah, that's the least risky way to do it if you know how to send and receive. The easiest way is just to send one ADA over there, and then in the new wallet, send the one ADA back. Okay, both wallets work. And then now you can move the funds,
Before we go on, I don't know if you do this, but I constantly do that. I can never send, like, even if it's like $100, I'm like, yeah, I want to send $100. I'm going to get like 3 ADA, 1 ADA first, and then move the whole thing. Do you do that? Or are you just like, I know where this is going, forget it?
I mean, if it's a larger amount, I always do it. Especially if it's a new wallet, it just makes me feel good. I send a little bit over and then I do that. But if I'm doing, like payroll, for example, I've gotten a bit more comfortable where I'm just, sending.
Hey, so Pey, is that what you pay your people with in crypto?
Some people that request it, yes. But it is kind of, the sad part is it's easier for accounting if you don't. If it all just comes out of a bank account, you can just hook it up with the traditional services. But if somebody requests crypto, I mean, we're happy to facilitate that.
Yeah, I was just curious. All right, cool. So to answer your question, Yoroi asked for the spending password. Is that safe? Yes, it is safe as long as, of course, you follow along what we talked about with the wallets. If you don't feel like connecting this to the site, then empty that wallet into something else and then connect it. And then you don't have any collateral damage on the horizon. Let's see.
But with Yoroi, you can do it without even leaving the wallet. So
even better. J-Dog says, hey, there's my ADA stake pool operator.
Thanks, J-Dog. I appreciate that. That's the 2020 was the year that we actually started Bloom. So it's cool to see you.
Yeah. Bikram says, why do we even need privacy when we've devoted our entire lives to social platforms designed to surveillance everyone, track and trap? Seriously, what's privacy anymore? I guess that would get down to the main theory of midnight. Like when I send things to people, like you can have, like if I send you 1 Bitcoin, like you asked before, and I'm still waiting for my 2 Bitcoin back, that's fine. But if I send you that 1 Bitcoin, you could just look at that public address and go, wow, Rob's got 1,000 Bitcoin. That's crazy. I'm going to wrench attack him. So like, I mean, that's how I see it. How do you see it, Pey? Is there anything different there?
I think that, because technology has really taken away our ability to be private, right? For better or for worse. And I hope to see technology evolve in a sense where, privacy is kind of ingrained in the technology. So like, imagine like an ID, for example. If you're trying to check my age and I can just sign, with some keys that says I'm over 18, I don't actually have to give you my age, right? And that's kind of this ZK proof style technology. So especially when it comes to crypto assets, I don't want people to know how much I have of each token. I don't
Right.
want people to know how much I've been trading. As you mentioned, when you go to do a deal with somebody, you don't want them to know how much you have. And right now, with some forensics, everything that you've ever done on the blockchain is essentially, you can attach it and people can kind of use that to go after you. And especially as content creators, we're kind of putting ourselves out there. We also don't want to put, how much money we have out there that doesn't, offer, it's not safe for us ultimately. So I think that, I hope that we head into a more private world where people realize the importance of, kind of not showing people what you have or where you live. And at least on the finance side, I think Midnight can help facilitate that.
Absolutely. All right. So that we'll take care of midnight. If you guys have more questions, which I see some, and we'll circle back and talk about those. But let's jump topics into Atrium. Now, Peyton, this is your platform. Tell us. Well, let's just do a recap. What is Atrium? What's been happening, and what are we going to see in the future?
Awesome. So we've been working on Atrium for the past couple of years. I've helped people onboard to crypto locally in my town, and I've also made hundreds of videos just trying to teach people about crypto, how to protect themselves, and how to get in the industry. And I felt we needed a platform that just made crypto easier for people and, also a bit prettier as well. A lot of the apps that we use don't look so nice. So when you come into Atrium, the first thing that you see is a little box that says, help, I'm new here. So when somebody asks you, what is crypto? You can just share them atrium.io because we have an education portal with 26 motion graphic videos that teach you what is a hardware wallet, what's a browser extension, all the basics. That's that little help, I'm new here tab. And when you click that, all of these videos are bite-sized, 2 to 4 minutes. They're motion graphic. They're kind of quick and easy. You can do a few of them at a time because I see a lot of people, starting to come in, from the price increases. And this is just a great place to send them, because it teaches them how to protect themselves and various stuff like that. And all of this education actually lives inside the Atrium dashboard. So if they see a word they've never heard of before, like staking, they can click help and it'll come up with a little video that shows them how to stake, why is staking important, what are my rewards, that sort of thing. And then I'll let you scroll through that. So then on top of that, we've also released, smart contracts to Cardano that have never been seen before. And they have 2 different focuses. The one that we launched actually last week is called Diffusion. And Diffusion delegates to 50 different Cardano stake pool operators at the same time. And then you get your ADA rewards, plus you get ATMA tokens on top of those ADA rewards, right? So you're supporting 50 different, businesses on Cardano, getting additional tokens on top of your rewards. And, when you deposit in there, you get the Diffusion token. And that Diffusion token represents your ADA plus your ADA rewards. And that's going to offer some unique, kind of use cases in Cardano's DeFi. Imagine you are, providing liquidity to a DEX, for example. That asset that you're depositing is really a derivative of ADA, that's delegating to 50 different Cardano stake pools. We're also trying to gamify Cardano a bit. So if you go to the profiles tab here, it's the little people sitting there. It's right there. So we've also built a smart contract that allows you to mint a Web3 profile. And what's unique about this is, it's a smart contract. When you mint it, You get one NFT in your wallet, and then one NFT stays in the smart contract. The NFT in the smart contract is your user data, right? So as you're, engaging with your favorite projects, you're starting to level up this NFT. And then when you go to customize it, the NFT in your wallet acts as a key that actually allows you to edit your user data, right?
Hmm.
And if go to the go-to profile, it's in kind of the left middle of the screen. So what we're trying to do is introduce, what we're calling SocialFi. And, you have these kind of user-based NFTs here. Rob's obviously a content creator. You're earning those Atma tokens from Diffusion. What you can do is you can actually take those Atma tokens and then stake them directly to Rob. And what we're calling that is proof of influence, right? So the way that you actually get your virality within Atrium is gathering delegation, just like a Cardano SPO. Right. So, you imagine these new users are coming in, they're learning about, the blockchain, how to use it, that all these tools are in here. And then they can go to kind of an ecosystem map of the different content creators, the different products. Like we're going to talk about Indigo here in just a minute, but I can imagine, Indigo's in a products tab, and, people are finding, new ways to interact with the blockchain, directly in the platform. So really, what is Atrium? It's an onboarding tool for new users. It's a way for businesses to promote their business. And we also have kind of unique smart contracts that allow you to support a bunch of different SPOs at the same time. And this is the leveling system here. And after this stream, we'll do a code today. We'll just call it, digital asset news. So if you guys have a profile, if you type in digital asset news and the redeem code, once we're done here, you guys will get some XP for doing that. And we have these are all of our users here. So far we've had, a tremendous amount of success. We've launched a month ago. I think we've had around 900 of these profiles minted so far. And we have, all of these users in here. They're leveling up their profile. They're earning XP from engaging on the blockchain and on socials. And they're having a lot of fun with it. These people are kind of competing for the top leaderboard position here. And Diffusion, the smart contract that we just launched, it already has almost 400,000 ADA locked up in it. Not locked, but deposited into the smart contract. So
very nice. So hey, take me through something, because I have 0 XP. How do I? What do I have to do to get some? Because these guys are beating me.
So So click the back button, go back to that little leveling screen there. Then click go to profile. Wait for it to load there. So scroll down a little bit to the leveling screen. We can get you your first little bit of XP. The easiest way is kind of connecting your profile, but scroll down. You see the list of challenges there where it says, say GM in the Discord. You can scroll down there and there should be a little claim button to get your first little bit.
Well, I got one. I got 10 out of 50 received.
Oh, so that's the first one that you just claimed. So we got 10 XP. But the way you level it up is, engaging on Twitter, engaging on Discord, and then using the Cardano blockchain.
Oh,
right?
I see. I just connect here or connect Discord, which I rarely use. I'll do that later. I don't want to have anybody see my private data. Who knows if it's actually there? But all right, it makes a lot of sense. So everybody, if that's something they're interested in, especially with the different tokens, there's a link in the description for Atrium, and then Pey, you're going to be coming back just to update us to see how things are going. Because you guys this was launched, what, 2 weeks ago?
So we did our first big launch, which was the dashboard, the education portal, and the profile system. We did that in July. And then last week, we just launched the Diffusion smart contract that allows the multi-delegation.
Pretty awesome. All right. So thanks for that, the update. Let's talk a little bit about this new piece, which is Indigo Protocol. So I partnered up with these guys, and I get what it is. I mean, we can see that it is like Bitcoin Cardano DeFi, essentially. Let me just go in here. I'm going to launch Indigo. Here's all the stuff that it has. And I can see that we can do loans, we can do swaps, we can be liquidity providers. But what do you use this for? And then just so everybody knows, like, I'm partnering up with Indigo and their sister organization or their other project called Chakra, which they're going to, that is a AI agent. And we're going to be making an AI agent for my Airbnb short-term rentals or VRBO. But so everybody knows what's going on. But what do you, Peyton, you were talking about this. What do you use this for yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if you look at, bridge hacks in the past on
Yeah.
Ethereum or other blockchains, billions and billions of dollars have been lost, to bridge hacks. So I think Indigo is a different take of having, assets that don't actually exist on the blockchain that you're using. So
Mhm.
what you do here is you come in, and this is just one type of user. You can create a CDP, which stands for collateralized debt position. So, you put in some ADA, and then you'll get, an I Bitcoin out of that, right? And then you can take that I Bitcoin and then you can deposit into their stability pool to start farming it and earning more rewards. But now that that IBTC exists, it allows other people on the blockchain to start trading Bitcoin on the blockchain without a bridge, right? So it's kind of a different take. Instead of, having all of these assets being bridged over and then being held in a smart contract that can be hacked, let's just build the smart contract itself on Cardano, allow people to mint these, Bitcoins or, Ethereum or even, USD out of this collateralized debt position so that now people can swap, USD, Bitcoin and Ethereum, directly on Cardano with no bridge. And the people that are minting these CDPs, they're actually getting, paid for doing so, for providing that, collateralized debt position. And then, what really stands out to me about Indigo, it's one of the protocols on Cardano that's actually taken decentralization seriously, right? What you can do if you have the Indigo token, you can actually stake the Indigo token and start earning ADA from it. And I'm not sponsored by them at all. I'm just a user of the platform. And yeah, right there, that HRA. If you take that Indy token, you're actually earning, the revenue that the platform's making from the CDPs, from the trades of the assets, that exist within the ecosystem. And you can see right there, you're actually earning 7% of ADA rewards plus 8% of more Indy tokens for
Oh,
taking that Indy token and staking it. And they've built such a nice system of smart contracts here where everything actually is automated. A lot of, developers and, a lot of protocols in crypto is like based on multi-sig wallets where these guys have actually built smart contracts that are interconnected. So when a governance action happens, I know governance is a bit boring, but you can actually change the protocol, directly from a vote and a change in the smart contract, and it automatically updates another contract. And the team behind Indigo, I've met them a bunch of times over the years, and they're just a really solid group of guys that kind of keep pushing the ecosystem and the industry forward.
I gotcha. That's pretty interesting. I didn't know that you could do double staking rewards. And I think this comes down to, because I'm pretty sure in the comment section, someone's going to say something about Solana or Ethereum or Avalanche or whatever else. And then inevitably it's going to come out to, why are you building on that ghost chain? Because Cardano is a ghost chain. It's a ghost chain. It is a ghost chain. And why I say that so feverishly is because as things get built, I like Cardano. I like Solana. I like Ethereum. I like Avalanche, like Sui. And I don't care which one makes it. I don't care which one is the big, huge winner of the day. I just take a look and say, well, this one has this aspect of it. And there might not be as much volume, but there are people building on it. Peyton here took it upon himself to build Atrium. We've got Indigo Protocol that is actually doing what they're doing on top of also stables. And when I take a look at that, I think to myself, maybe we're just super early. And maybe that's where we want to be. And one thing is for sure, I know people hate when I say this, but Cardano's never gone down, ever. And it's been around since, has it been 2016 or 2017? I always forget. It's been,
I think it was late 2016.
Yeah. And it's doing pretty good. Now, of course, it took a little bit more time, but here we are. And I'm not here to say like you're bad because you invest in Solana or you're an awful person because you invest in Sui. I'm just saying there's different strokes for different folks and there's different platforms for different people. And I take a look at this, I'm like, you know what? Not a bad choice. Traditional finance is not the type to say, you know what, we don't, or we want stability. They are those types that say we want stability. If it's a little bit slower, so much the better. Have you guys ever used the bank You know how slow that is? Anything in crypto, and I mean anything in crypto, is a major step up from the crappy banks that we have to use and move money around. And that's just 100% the truth. But Peyton, I want to say thanks for kind of breaking that down for us. Is there anything else on Indigo you use it for besides the CDPs, staking, anything else?
So I personally have some indie tokens, and I'm staking them directly to earn those ADA and indie rewards. I did actually mint some Bitcoin in the past as well, and then provided that as you can stake it to a stability pool to earn some more rewards there. But that's mostly what I've used it for. I haven't tried out the new Chakra AI agents just yet, and I look at kind of each cryptocurrency that's in the top 15 as a unique trade-off, right? They're all different tools for developers. And I think Cardano has chosen, decentralization and security and uptime, whereas Solana has kind of chosen speed, right, over that. And I think that, as you mentioned, different strokes for different folks. As we head towards this, kind of industry adoption or institutional adoption of crypto, each of these institutions are going to be looking, based on what they're already doing, to use a blockchain that kind of meets their set of trade-offs here. So I don't think it's a winner takes all future in crypto. I think that there's going to be, different people using different blockchains, and I hope to see them interoperable between each other, and I think that, Cardano stands out because it is a unique set of trade-offs. It's not another Ethereum or Solana. It's, even the smart contracting language is different. And I think, the governments as well. I think governments are going to start looking at decentralization as well. How many voters are there? How many people are the decision makers in these blockchains? And, Solana has had a huge benefit by having a few decision makers be able to, allocate capital quickly, whereas Cardano hasn't had that ability. But 260 million ADA was just sent out from the treasury, from a decentralized vote, to expedite development within the ecosystem.
Damn, that sounds pretty good. And then just as a reminder, if we're just looking at just straight up price action, and then what you talked about, Peyton, as far as like, there's not a one winner take all. I always saw it as, I think the future is multi-chain. And World Mobile, one of my favorite projects, also because I'm actually using the actual service on my cell phone, which I can't wait to get back to Puerto Rico and test it out, because I've been doing it in Texas and it's worked pretty well so far. But World Mobile itself, you can see here on the contracts, they started on Cardano, and now they're on Arbitrum, Cardano, Base, Solana, and BNB. So, I mean, what's the problem there? And then, of course, if you take a look at Indigo Protocol, I'm glad I got a little bit of that. But it's done pretty well. The last year, it's up 151%. Damn, that's a lot. 30 days, 30%, 14 days, 30%. And then, of course, today's pretty good. So, yeah, multi-chain, I can see it. All right. Well, Peyton, anything else before we get into like a little Q&A and jump back there?
I think it's time for the Q&A.
I think it's time for the Q&A. Let's do this. So let's see what we got. First of all, everybody, if you got to take off, take off. Thanks so much for stopping by. We do appreciate it. If you want to stick around for a Q&A, you can ask any questions, and me and Peyton will try our best to answer them to the best of our abilities. Here we go. Before we move on to the serious questions, let's be a little more tribalistic and talk about Solana and Cardano. And Sizgy says, it's still in beta. They will use it as an excuse when it goes down completely. Look, I don't want Solana to go down. I want it to stay up, and I want it to do well because I got a big fat bag, and we'll see where it goes from there. Here's a good question. Rob, why aren't you claiming Night? It's because I have PTSD from all the scams and things that I've gone through, and I just don't want to deal with it. I want to have the younger generation, the smarter one like Peyton, to go through the process, and you guys can go to him and his channel, and he can answer all the questions about Midnight and go from there. I just don't want to connect any of my wallets to anything. I'm just kind of writing this out, and I'm okay if I don't get an airdrop. And it's more for everybody else. So I feel like I'm kind of giving my stake away. Meme says, how fast will Hydra make Cardano? I guess it's that even a thing. Is that still going on? I don't know if.
So I went to an event in Vegas a couple of weeks ago called Rare Evo, and they were demoing Hydra at the event with a pretty cool use case. Essentially, each booth that you stopped at, you had this little scanner, and you like tagged the booth with it, and then you started to earn points. And I actually won like a little ledger from it. So Hydra is out there, it's live, it's around, but now it's on developers to actually build out, protocols using Hydra to get that increased throughput. So, it's there, it's live, but you need, kind of someone to really grab it and build a DEX on it to, increase the transactions.
Is there anybody out there as far as projects building DEXs on something as like Hydra, which is that fast? Is anybody building right now, or is it still like just kind of a ways away?
I think there's still some time before we see any, real use cases. I've seen a DEX kind of live and running on it, and it really does, you essentially sacrifice, some of the decentralization, but you get increased throughput, right? And that's just back to the blockchain trilemma. As far as scaling on Cardano, there's people actually building, I know this guy works with Anastasia Labs. He's building something called Midgard, which is a scaling solution for Cardano. And then Midnight also, is another way to scale with some privacy.
Fantastic. Tons of information. Thanks, Pey. How about this one? Could you please suggest the best cold wallet in your opinion? Also, do you recommend using a cold wallet for assets worth more than 5,000 or 10,000 or whatever else? And Peyton, you got a favorite?
Yeah, I do. I've always been a really big Trezor guy.
Yeah. You and Guy from Coin Bureau love Trezor. You guys love it.
I mean, Ledger, it's just never really been my thing. I did win one, as I said at that event, and it's a nice device. They have this kind of book style one where it's almost like the Kindle reader. I've been playing around with that. It's nice, but Trezor offers a lot, I think, for power users, right? But I think anyone's going to be fine with either a Ledger or a Trezor. I've just been more of a Trezor guy.
Yeah, Ledger, I have a couple of those, and I will just say like this, because of the things that I've heard and seen and gone through, I diversify, obviously, my portfolio of crypto, digital assets, stocks, real estate, precious metals, and then I also diversify my storage devices. So I actually have a good chunk on iTRUST. So I've sent that over to them, and they custody it, which is the same custody service that MicroStrategy and BlackRock use, which is Coinbase Prime. And I've also have ledgers, and I have tangems. So multiple of those, because like I said before, I refuse to be the guy who puts everything just on one device and something happens to that device and my seed phrases. And I'm like, damn it, that goes all my 10 billion. I'm just kidding. 10 billion, but you get the point.
So I think that's really clever. And why hardware wallets matter. I get messages all the time of my wallet was drained. And as soon as you have a hardware wallet, the only way someone can take your money is if they're at your house, right? Whereas if you leave your money in a hot wallet, if somebody gets into your computer, they can take everything. So there really is a value to hardware wallets, and I do recommend them for everyone. You know what,
Peyton? You know what we should start doing is call them hardware vaults or cold storage vaults, and we should just start calling hot wallets, because it's kind of like when you're walking around, you got $20, $100 in your wallet, right? And you go and you buy some things, but then you don't keep your entire life savings in your, physical wallet. That'd be ridiculous. So I'm going to start calling these cold storage vaults from now on. And then hot wallets, because that's how you should really do it. Keep a little bit in the hot wallet, keep a ton in the cold storage vaults. That would be not bad. Let's see.
Yeah, even if you connect to a website, and you only have a couple $100 in there and you get scammed, you're only out a couple $100 instead of your entire base of assets. So, it's good to have both, I think.
Peyton, where were you in 2017 when these things were going down with me? No, just kidding. All right. TANGEM, no battery to fail. Meme says thank you. Let's see. I'm with you. I think that might be it. Oh, still waiting for my Seeker phone from Solana. Definitely going to use World Mobile. Wouldn't that be something else? Is it you get the Seeker phone, which is Solana based, and then you sign up for World Mobile? That'd be something.
Yeah, I want one of those Seeker phones. I missed out on Solana because I was too nerdy about it. I saw the network go down. I had a bunch of Sol at like $15. I saw
Yeah,
the network go down and I sold it. I was like, yeah, it's gonna suck, but I was too much of a nerd about it. But what they're doing with the Solana phone is really smart. They're trying to like even their tagline is, get rid of the duopoly, right? Because we all rely on Apple and we all rely on Google. I think it would be great to have a third option, a third store with the SDKs that are already made,
yeah.
for crypto developers. I think that what they're doing there is really clever.
Dude, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna get a secret phone. I'm gonna sign up. I'm gonna transfer my eSIM from my
Hmm.
phone over to that secret phone. But damn it, now I got to pay a bunch of money because I didn't get in early. Oh well.
That's like a crypto bro, like evolved, like the Solana phone with the World Mobile.
What a nerdy flex. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
bro, I got my secret. Let's see. Says this happy Friday. Oh, Sean got his secret already. I guess they are going out. I didn't.
I've seen a couple of them.
Bastards. Good for them. I mean, yeah. ETH is over. Really?
Oh, wow.
Let's take a look. Peyton, we
Yeah.
did it.
We pumped the prices.
We did it. Oh my God. It's amazing. Damn, look at that. 4,800. What's the alt? 14% in a day. Hey, you know what I do wonder about? Peyton, are you into any of the treasuries, like stocks and other companies that are doing treasuries like MicroStrategy and stuff like that? Or not really?
No, I
It's a gamble. It's a gamble.
yeah, I just don't. I always have bought crypto and just held it in hardware wallets, so I haven't really messed around with them. But I mean, if you would have got MicroStrategy early on, I think you would have done quite well.
Yeah, I think so. You know who crushed it on that MicroStrategy play was James from Invest Answers.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he got in like super early. Look at this one. This is nice. BitMine. This is the one from Tom Lee, who took over as CEO. Put in a couple hundred. I don't know how much crypto they have now, but let's see.
So is it like buying leveraged Bitcoin? Like let's say I buy 1 Bitcoin,
Yeah.
or I buy, 1 Bitcoin worth of the MicroStrategy shares. Are the shares kind of leveraged to where I'll have more upside and then more downside? Or is it kind of similar?
There is different products for MicroStrategy, and I have not gotten into all the different products because I'm a degen sometimes, but not that kind of degen. And
Yeah,
there's other
me
people
too.
that can talk to this. And we actually talked about this yesterday on the NFA live show about the net asset value or the MNAV and how it's, MicroStrategy is saying, okay, so the net asset value is based on this and how much Bitcoin we have, but we can increase those numbers and increase our shares if we want to keep buying more, and they're going to keep buying more Bitcoin. And because of that, the net MNAV goes up. So some people are having red flags. Other people like it's not a big deal because they're going to be listing the S&P 500, and then money will just flow into MicroStrategy as people aren't even aware because it's the S&P 500. So for me, I look at them like it's a riskier play, I think, in some ways, but in some other ways it's a little bit less. But like stuff like BitMine, and I think there's another one, FGNX, is a risky play, but it could pay off pretty massively. But that's depending on your risk tolerance. Let's see.
Yes. Seth Shepard. Yes. Sailor says strategy is BTC on steroids. Which is that's a good line.
That's a good line. Yep. Tangent connects to. Oh, look at that. Tangent connects to everything. Let's see. And I think we might. Oh, this is the last question. We should get out of here. I could see banks offering their services to hold cryptos just like normal currencies. People are just not ready to be self-custodians. Pey, what's your thoughts on this? As far as should we just teach everybody about cold storage, vaults, and hot wallets? Or is it okay to have them get into ETFs and banks and such?
When I started in crypto, I was very self-sovereign. Everybody needs to hold all of their own assets on cold storage. But I think as I, have kind of grown up a little bit, I realized that a lot of people just don't really want to deal with that. They want someone else to kind of hold their keys for them. I really like the way that you do it with iTrust Capital and then using different hardware wallets. I think that there may be some people where iTRUST or another, product like iTRUST is the actual answer for that individual,
Yeah.
right? I mean, my grandma holds crypto,
Oh,
for
yeah.
example, and I have her seed raised just in case. You know what I mean? Because I don't want her to spill some coffee on it or something. So, I think it's good. I think having these options for people is good. I mean, even Ledger, and a lot of people hate this, but Ledger has a monthly subscription now where you
Yeah.
can pay them to essentially hold your seed phrase. And, that's one of the best things about a bank is if someone takes money from me, I can call the bank and I'll get my money back. If someone commits fraud with my card, there is a huge, huge use case for that. But if you're a bit more on the nerdy side, just hold your crypto. I think there is a huge benefit from that. I mean, what really sold me on Bitcoin many years ago was the fact that, you can hold $1 million in your head if you can remember the seed phrase. And no matter where you go in the world, you still have that value. And that's, insane. Like that's an evolution of like the human race of being able to hold that value in your head. But at the same time, I think that, people should really make that decision for themselves. And I like the way that you've diversified.
Yeah, well said. Perfect ending. So everybody, again, if you're looking for Big Pey or Peyton, there's a link in the description for his YouTube, X, and also links for the Midnight Airdrop and Atrium, which is his project. But that's it for today. Peyton, we'll have you back on as more updates roll in. I'd like to see how everything grows on your platform. But that's it for this one, everybody. So thanks so much for stopping by on a Friday. We appreciate all you, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Adios.
Thank you guys. Click the like button for Rob.
Yeah, hit the like. Sounds good.